big bar enjoyment and big bar value. Weigh it up.
A Mars a day helps you work, rest and play.
Mars bars are the most traditional of chocolates, a 1930s combination of soft nougat, caramel and solid milk chocolate, first produced in the United Kingdom by an American confectionery scion.
Mars, with all the goodness of milk, glucose, sugar and thick chocolate.
Forrest Mars was the son of Franklin Mars, who'd founded the Mars Empire. Mars Jr. also invented Maltesers and M&Ms, and the world's sweet tooth made him a billionaire, and his company one of the world's most famous. Today, Mars makes everything from packaged rice to pet food, and it's been responsible for, let's be honest here, some of the world's greatest ads. Remember Mr. T, the muscle-bound star of the 1980s sitcom The A-Team? He starred in a series of ads for another Mars product, Snickers bars. This one featuring a soccer player diving to the ground with a fake injury. Mr. T rolls onto the field in a tank and points the cannon directly at the whining soccer player's face.
Quit your jibber jabber. You ain't hurt. You pathetic. If I ever catch you acting like a crazy fool again, you're gonna meet my friend Pain. Snickers, get some nuts.
Snickers had another ad featuring actress Betty White, one of the Golden Girls, playing American football.
Mike, what is your deal, man?
Oh, come on, man. You've been riding me all day.
Mike, you're playing like Betty White out there.
That's not what your girlfriend said.
Baby! Betty takes a bite of a Snickers and transforms into a fit young man.
You're not you when you're hungry. Snickers satisfies.
Today, Mars manufactures products for Australian markets at factories including in Ballarat, including, and I'm shocked I didn't already know about this, a now discontinued line of popcorn-flavoured Maltesers, inspired by a particularly Australian trend of dumping a bag of Maltesers in your bucket of popcorn at the movies and allowing it all to melt together in one heart-stopping, salty, sweet combo. Eli Greenblatt is the Australian's retail expert and a senior business reporter. Eli, what is your favourite Mars product? And you can't say Uncle Ben's rice because that's just too boring.
No, definitely Mars bars, and they have to be in the fridge. I think chocolate must be in the fridge. So, yes, Mars bars, slightly chilled.
Eli, what sort of company is Mars in the Australian manufacturing landscape now? How important are they?
Yes, they're a very important manufacturer. They've got about 130-odd factories. 6 of those factories are in Australia. And those factories are very important. It's a very important part of their hub in terms of not just producing for Australia and New Zealand, but also some exports into Asia. And they make a whole range of foods here, chocolates especially, but also Mars own a very large portfolio of pet foods. They also own and manufacture chewing gum, also a range of food ingredients. So they're not just chocolates, although of course they're very important in chocolates, but they're very important in terms of investing in innovation, investing in manufacturing capabilities, investing in employment in Australia, and especially regional Australia, where their factories are mostly located.
But Mars says manufacturing here is just too expensive.
They cite a number of things. Labour inflation, energy is a big one. They're a big user of gas and other key energy inputs, freight, handling, supply chains, and it's just a very expensive place to operate. And for a company like Mars, they do need to make a return on their investment, but also they need to be profitable and profitable in a sustainable way so they can reinvest in those manufacturing sites, reinvest in innovation, technology, and of course their staff. And they're not the only ones. A few global manufacturers, Nestle, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Kellogg's, have all now called out Australia as a very expensive place to do business.
Mars says its gas prices have more than doubled in the past 2 years alone, just to keep its 6 Australian factories running. Mars Australia has put in a submission to a federal parliamentary inquiry into supermarket power, and it's listed all its gripes with the Australian market.
They have said that it is quite a concentrated marketplace, especially compared to where else they operate. It is highly concentrated, where you've got Woolworths and Coles who dominate, and we've heard a lot about that through the Senate Supermarkets Inquiry. And remember, Mars is a very powerful supplier. They're not a small mom and pop operator. They're one of the biggest suppliers in the world. They didn't say they've got any problems at the moment with Coles or Woolies, but they just said that given the concentration, if there is an argument with one, that's a problem. An argument with two, that's a very big problem. They still try and maintain pretty good relationships, but I think given the Senate has asked them the question, they have answered and have been pretty bold in what they've said.
One of Mars's biggest inputs is, naturally, cocoa. Prices are soaring internationally. There are numerous causes, but the main one is a lack of supply. There's been bad weather in West Africa that has damaged crops. There are a bunch of diseases affecting the trees, and other industries like mining are crowding out cocoa farms. The other factor is that cocoa is a commodity, that is, a raw material that's traded around the world and is basically uniform. Just like coffee or wheat or iron ore, cocoa beans are basically the same whether they're produced in Africa or Asia or South America. And just like other commodities, there's a futures market for cocoa, where investors trade contracts to buy or sell in the future. It's a way of betting on what the economy will do in future. And that's also part of what has sent cocoa prices up. The price of the beans is pegged to the futures market, which has been incredibly volatile. Internationally, there are reports some chocolate manufacturers are dealing with the problem with shrinkflation. That is, using less.
Yes, I'm saying that. And Mars called this out in their submission. Nestle did the same, where they're very careful in passing on those higher inflationary costs to their consumers. They know there's not much room for that. So really all they can do is become more efficient, so cut their own costs. But there's just so much you can do of that. And then ultimately reducing the pack sizes. And they've done that with their chocolate bars. Other products have certainly shrunk and the price has stayed the same or maybe gone down a touch, but not the same as the reduction in the package. And that is the essence of what shrinkflation is. So in that way, they've tried to limit the increase in price for their shopper, but they've had to cut the size of it. And people will notice that, I think, when they pick up a chocolate bar, they'll see it certainly has shrunk.
Coming up, this story, like so much in the news, will shift on Tuesday when Treasurer Jim Chalmers hands down the budget. We'll have all the best coverage live for our subscribers at theaustralian.com.au. A subscription costs a lot less than a Mars bar a day, and it won't rot your teeth. We'll be back after this break.
Okay, can we take that out? Is that okay?
Well, I mean, if we're on the record. You said it. I mean, you know, let's move on. But yeah,
no, I think I'm done, guys. I do this with good intent. I don't do this with bad intent.
You're walking out, really?
No. Can we just talk through Brad for a second?
Back in February, Woolworths CEO Brad Banducci stormed out of a TV interview and then, in the wake of the humiliation, announced he'll retire in September. It's been a tough year for the supermarkets. Woolies and its big competitor Coles have been the subject of a Senate inquiry into supermarket pricing, including allegations of price gouging. Banducci and Coles CEO Leah Weckert, along with other retail bosses, fronted up to the Senate inquiry to explain. Here's Banducci copping a grilling from the inquiry's chair, Green Senator Nick McKim.
Please answer the question about ROE.
Senator, with due respect, we focus on our return on investment.
All right, I know what you focus on. Thank you, Mr. Banducci. I know what you focus on. You've been very clear about that. Let's talk about your ROE.
On Tuesday, after trawling through submissions from 150 retailers, the inquiry handed down its final report.
After months questioning their power, prices and profits, the push for a supermarket shake-up, starting with making price gouging illegal.
It called for a huge overhaul with 14 recommendations, including the introduction of a pricing and competition commission and breaking up Australia's supermarket duopoly. The problem is, Labor's not so keen on the divestiture bill currently before Parliament.
Yeah, some of them are pretty strong and I think have got no chance of getting up. This, of course, is a Greens-led Senate inquiry, which the Albanese government allowed to happen. And some of those recommendations you would think would never happen. Now, how would you even prove that? How would you show that? What is excessive pricing? What is price gouging? It's not entirely clear. So there are a few problematic ones, and we'll see if the government will allow any of those to go through, and the federal government's got about 3 months to respond to the Senate inquiry report.
Just taking that divestiture idea, Eli, it would seem unlikely that the government's going to be forcing big companies to sell off parts of themselves. So, is this a missed opportunity by the inquiry to get some real reform?
I think it possibly could be, and I think it shows perhaps the domination of the Greens on that Senate inquiry and what they wanted to push through and what they wanted to talk mostly about. And many people around that inquiry have seen it as a missed opportunity to really get into some key issues facing suppliers, facing farmers. So I think that probably is a lost opportunity. Now, that committee, of course, was made up of Greens, Labor, Liberal, National, Independents. There was a split on the committee where they wouldn't support an industry-wide divestiture power recommendation, so that divestiture could apply to any company anywhere in the economy. They did, on the whole, support a recommendation where those divestiture powers would apply just to supermarkets, but that is also seen as pretty unworkable. For example, let's say that the courts forced a supermarket to sell off a bunch of supermarkets in far north Queensland, just to choose one example. Now, who would buy those supermarkets? Who would buy them? What would you do with them? It's just unworkable, and I don't think will happen.
Eli Greenblatt is a senior business reporter with The Australian. Later this week, the High Court will rule on the fate of a group of asylum seekers who are refusing to go back to their countries of origin. You can be the first to know by subscribing at theaustralian.com.au.